Hello, lovely people. I have a fun one for you guys today. I missed sharing some older stuff with you guys because, I don't know, it just sort of fell out that way that the last couple of things I've shared with you are like a little bit more recent. And then in the last month, it being Halloween month, I just wanted to do something different. So now we're back with a fun black and white, sort of debatably scary horror movie from 1960. It's called Tormented. It features beautiful blondes, a lighthouse, disembodied heads, and yeah, the course of true love never did run smooth. So it's basically a horror film. But I thought it would be a fun one because I was just thinking with you guys probably know I like horror films, but for the more classic films, this one's very like not scary. So if you wanted something that was kind of, spooky, but you're just thinking like with it being 2021 and everything going on, you want to watch something that was probably going to sort of make you laugh or that you could have a bit of fun with, this is a good one. So that's why I picked it. So it features a man called Tom. We open and he's at the top of a lighthouse having a stolen moment with his ex-lover, Vi. And he's basically there to tell her that it's really definitely for realsies over between them this time, for real. Because he's going to marry somebody else. Vi doesn't take no for an answer, and she has their old love letters, so she threatens to share them with his bride. But then she's leaning against a railing at the top of the lighthouse and it breaks. And she's hanging there by one hand. And so Tom decides to not help her. And he lets her fall to her death. But Vi is one determined dame. And soon she's haunting him from beyond the grave. Stealing his wedding ring as a disembodied hand. Ruining the bride's dress. And just generally, trying to not let him move on. So this was a fun one. It's directed by a man called Bert I. Gordon. And in the industry, he was nicknamed Mr. Big, which is because his initials are B.I.G. And he tended to direct these like sort of giant creature feature monster films. And yeah, there's a little girl in this movie called Sandy, who I'll talk about a little bit more. She's played by Susan Gordon, and that's his daughter. She's, I think, about 9 or 10 in the film. I think her character's 9, but I think she's actually 10, her actual age. I don't know why that's important, but, for clarity, her exact age. So this was a film from the Allied Artists Studio. It had previously been Monogram in the decade before, but it had sort of amalgamated and stuff like that. It was what was known as a Poverty Row studio in its era, which meant it was a smaller studio with less shiny stars, smaller budgets, less money for effects and things like that. These studios on Poverty Row tended to try to draw people in with sensational plots and sometimes kind of salacious plot lines or, starlets being menaced in the posters with this sort of strap falling off one shoulder, that kind of thing. So these films are often a lot of fun. Sometimes they're really bad because they're cheap, but sometimes they were a place where people could be a little bit more creative and kind of try things out. The Roger Cormans of the world sort of in later decades would come from the Poverty Row. Although this is 1960, so it's not that long. Now these films would be sort of like indie films, I guess, although this is still the studio system. And indie has a kind of respectable aura to it, whereas Poverty Row is definitely trying to cash in on things. So yeah, that's the kind of the background to this kind of a film, and it gives you a sense of what the kind of look and feel of the whole thing is going to be. So Bert I. Gordon, he was kind of one of these studio guys. He made a lot of these kinds of films. So I actually recommend Mystery Science Theater 3000 if you've, I guess probably everyone's heard of this, but just in case you haven't, This film was featured on season 5, episode 14 in the original series, I think. Some like places where I was looking for it, it looked like it was season 4, episode 14, but I think it's actually season 5. In case you don't know what Mystery Science Theater is, it started in the 90s. I think they did a series of it, like a what do you call it, like a remake or whatever, in 2017. But it's basically a comedy where characters watch old films and kind of just riff on them, and so you're kind of like watching people watch the film, and it's a comedy and it's very funny. And yeah, so that's would be an excellent way to watch this film if you want to have a bit of fun with it. Yeah, that's how I recommend watching it anyway. But yeah, so essentially the main kind of focus of this film is on special effects. There's a disembodied hand. There are footsteps appearing, sort of ghostly footprints in the sand. There's the severed head scene, which is probably my personal favorite. It's very like I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched level effects, but in a really good way. Like it's kind of got that a 60s style to it. And yeah, I mean, there's lots of different ways that Vi haunts throughout the film, and it's quite effective. I think now it's quite tame, but it gives you a lot of like visuals to look at. Sometimes with older films, the effects can be kind of dinky and it's fun to laugh at them, but sometimes they can kind of be a bit boring because what we find brings tension as a modern viewer, you know, is sort of not really around in this era. So this film's quite good because it's got like fairly fast pacing for its time, I mean, and like I said, the visual kind of effects are really pushed. So it's quaint, but I've seen some older horror films and I mean I like them, but they can be slow for somebody who likes modern horror, for example, because it's like not enough is happening or things are implied and not shown or whatever. So yeah, there's not like a lot of amazing like lighting or set design or anything like that here, but the costuming is really good. It's 1960, as I feel like I've said that like 8 times now, but that means it has like a late 50s look to it with the there's very tight dresses with pencil skirts or the full kind of post World War II like new look full skirt. It's not new look, but it's that kind of era. Tiny waists. There's a really cute swimsuit that we first see Meg in. She is the bride. Her wedding dress is really nice. So that's kind of fun. There's some really cute things like that in there. Sandy is a little girl in this that I mentioned before. She has the best clothes, just quietly. Yeah, so the music here was recycled from another horror film. I think House on Haunted Hill, I think is where it was taken from. Yeah, it does have quite a lot of creative stuff with its budget. So I feel like this is a very, kind of has a bit of style, this film. It's really having fun. And I don't think it takes itself too seriously, but there's the 2 female leads. The little girl, is like a lot of kind of style here, which is really fun. Yeah, and I really liked that. It's definitely entertaining, but it's also coherent. Like, it's kind of linear. On the opening scene, we have the setup, and then almost straight away, things are happening, and it's just a straight line. Like, Tom is waiting, hoping his bride doesn't find out about his ex, and Vi as a ghost is doing everything she can to ruin the wedding, and Meg, the bride, is just kind of like, why is my fiance acting so weird, and why is everything going wrong? And so it's just kind of a straight line, like it just works. And I'm belaboring that point because some horror films I've seen recently, they feel like they're written by committee and things contradict themselves. It can be very contrived. And I mean, I'm not really complaining about that because that's kind of par for the course, but this film doesn't do that. And I feel like, you know, for Poverty Row, I wouldn't mind if it did, but it doesn't. And I feel like that's classy. So just to kind of go back to our actors, the lead in this is Tom, played by Richard Carlson. He actually has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He's not bad in this, but for me personally, he's kind of the weakest link in the film. He plays things very straight, and everything else feels a little bit cheesy. So it's probably the right choice for the film. But I just sort of, like, when everyone else is so colorful, you know? Like, you just kind of like, he does a good job, it's fine. You know, he's not what you're going to remember from this film specifically. He is in The Creature from the Black Lagoon, which is a classic I actually considered covering for you guys. I may do it in future because it's a good, fun one. The character Tom is a pretty crappy person. And like, I kind of like love to hate him a little bit as I was watching this. So little Sandy is trying to show him her magic trick and he's not listening. He like ignores his fiance and like avoids her and just like is generally kind of just a jerk throughout the whole thing. Like in that subtle way where you're like, this guy just isn't that nice. I mean, yeah, obviously he killed his ex-girlfriend. That would be the biggest red flag. But it just kind of is funny to me that it's like he's very straight, very boring, and just not that nice. He's not a great listener, you know. Meg is played by Lugene Sanders, which I think is a great name. Her real first name is actually Trevelyan, which I think is quite fancy. So before this, she was kind of more of a... She's quite young, so she's starting out in her career, and she was on a TV show called The Life of Riley. Never heard of it, never seen it. It's well before my time, but then so were all these films, so that's no excuse. But after this film, I think she did a few more things, and then she retired from acting. So yeah, she's well cast here as the worried young bride, wondering what the deal is with her fiance. I think she really holds her own next to Vi, who's kind of probably the star in a backwards kind of way. I think Lugene Sanders is very attractive, so she draws the eye. She gets some great costumes, and yeah, I mean, she's a little bit cheesy. Like, there's certain points in the film where maybe her performance is a little uncertain, but for Poverty Row films, I think she does a really good job. So Vi is played by Julie Redding. We see her in the opening shots. She looks amazing. She's got this like really figure-hugging dress with like the late 50s. I think they went into the 60s as well with a really pointed bra, like it's the bullet bra. She's definitely like this kind of crazy femme fatale, you know, who won't give up on her man that easily and that kind of thing. She's absolutely stunning. So she's definitely a scene stealer whenever she is on screen, and I think for that reason she's really well cast. She was later in a show called Burke's Law. So there's a few people here that were in TV a lot. But she wasn't in like loads of stuff, because I did look her up. I wondered if she was sort of a model or like what her entry point was. But yeah, after this, she did a few things, and then she just married a really rich man and became a socialite. And I was like, I wonder if there's a biography of her, because she sounds like just kind of interesting, you know? So she's really good. She's not in loads of scenes in the sense that her character is, but sometimes, you know, she's just a disembodied hand, or it's her voice or that kind of thing. She gets extra points from me for her performance as a disembodied head, because it's kind of hilarious, but it's also like, I don't know, she's just kind of like having fun. I feel like she's having fun anyway. So let me see. We haven't talked much about Sandy. As I said, she's about 9. She has all these cute little outfits. She kind of reminds me of like a little doll, you know, with this like the blonde hair, and it's obviously like somebody's curled it, like who has time to curl their child's hair every day. She's meant to be Meg's little sister. There's a big age gap between them, But I have to say, she kind of is, she just chews up the scenery. She's one of the best things in this film, other than, I don't know, because Vi is just so great and so bitter and so like determined. But Sandy would probably be favorite character number 2. So she has this kind of running thing throughout this movie where she sort of seems to think that her grown-up sister is kind of a loser or something. Like, she's just kind of like, oh my god, my idiot sister, which I think is so funny because she's 9. Like, you would expect that in teenage sisters, but like, I don't know, she just clearly thinks she's more mature than her sister, and I thought that was really funny and well played. She talked about wanting the ring herself. She wants to marry Tom, like, and they have this weird, well, it's not weird for the time. Okay, I'm gonna start again because this has to come out right or it's gonna sound really bad. So she basically has like a little kid crush on Tom. She thinks he's great, and it's very much like a friendship thing, you know, like there's nothing weird about it. But it's definitely the kind of joke that an adult could have with a kid in the 60s, and it's quite innocent, and like, you just couldn't make these jokes now. But basically he kind of flirts back with Sandy and calls her the other woman and that kind of thing, and it's like, it's a little cringy. It's all in play, but yeah, it just was kind of struck me because if you couldn't leave that in a film now because it would just be so sinister. She's like this little 9-year-old going on 30. But yeah, she has these little outfits for day wear with matching hats, and it's cute. And we actually meet her before we meet his fiance, which I think is kind of probably because she's the director's daughter, but I just thought it was kind of an interesting way of, you know, she's more knowledgeable or more savvy than her sister, and it kind of helps the film because Meg doesn't know what's going on, and so it kind of helps, like, you know, push that to the front that Meg's being duped and is just kind of like, you know, not seeing what's going on, I guess. But yeah, Sandy's in everybody's business, and she kind of goes through a few things in this film because she just gets into everything. So the other person that I'll give a little mention to, because there are a few characters here, but I've covered most of them. But there's a Mrs. Ellis. She's played by Lillian Adams. Lillian Adams was working in TV and mostly in TV, but in films from the 50s, like for her whole life. She has a face where you would probably be like, oh, she was in this thing, you know, she's been in like Murphy Brown, Frasier, The Outer Limits, like all kinds of stuff. And in this movie she is blind, and she has this buffy, like, sort of, it's not like a bouffant, but it's like her hair just goes up at the front, like straight up for like a good 2-3 inches. It's amazing. So her character is blind, and she's pretty cool. She I couldn't quite figure out, I think she says that she's like an estate agent or something, but she seems to be like a housekeeper of some kind as well, and her outfits or costuming look a little bit like a uniform, but yeah, I don't know. So there's a great scene with her where she goes to the tower of the lighthouse, which is kind of next to where everybody's staying, and she thinks that all these weird ghostly happenings are not a ghost but a person, and so she goes to the tower to confront someone because she hears something, and so she's blind, she can't see the danger around her, and it's just it's not like super chilling just because the film is a bit cheesy, but it's really effective as an idea, and it's used kind of effectively that we can see how much danger she's in, and she can't. So I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, that's kind of the film. It's like lots of fun and games where Vi torments Tom in different ways. There is one other character, a guy that comes in and figures out what Tom's done and calls him like Daddy-O because it's 1960, and like blackmails him, but it's kind of just a little side thing. Yeah, we learn things like they're getting gifted 9 sets of candlesticks and almost as many salad bowls as a wedding gift, which I was just kind of, it's maybe not important to the plot, but I just kind of thought, wow, that really is a lot of candlesticks. So towards the end, things start to kind of come to a head. The wedding is ready to go ahead, and Sandy finds out some stuff, so she's in a difficult position because obviously we've had it well established that Tom is her friend and someone that she cares about and that she trusts, and it's kind of it's used really effectively. The ghost enters the room at the wedding at that like moment where it's like, forever hold your peace, that kind of moment. The ghost enters and the flowers wilt. It's a cool little moment. But anyway, on the whole, I really like this idea of this poor girl, like in the figure of Meg. Just, she's nice, she's pretty, she's just sort of an all-American girl, and she probably gets like less screen time than most people. I think I just had a Freudian slip then and said scream time instead of screen time. That's funny. But I liked her she's so caught up in wedding details, she just wants that to just go well, and it's very confusing for her, and she's just, what is the deal with Tom's behavior? Why is he being so weird? And I don't know. I just kind of liked that. I thought that was like a fun way to keep her distracted enough that everything could kind of go on. So yeah, mostly when you watch this film, you'll probably laugh because it is kind of funny, like hands appearing and whatever. It's cheesy. I feel like it knows it's cheesy and it's having fun, but still trying out sort of film techniques that would have been, I don't know if they would have been groundbreaking, but they're different, they're trying things, and I think that's really cool. So it's not an amazing film in the sense that it's not going to change your life. You're not going to be chilled to the bone, but it has a lot of fun, and I feel like Vi is just lovely. It's just, she's not lovely, she's horrible, but like her character is so, there's like villain, like a Disney villain, like where they just chew up the scenery. So yeah, I feel like her and Tom kind of belong together. And at the end, they kind of end up together. Not to spoil it, but, this film is from 1960. So yeah, if you're looking for a film that's kind of like a bit of a laugh, but has spooky vibes, it's kind of light, kind of fun, but not like, it's not boring. There's kind of like stuff will happen. I mean, this film will work for you. It's a good 2021 Halloween film if you kind of don't want something that's too... how sometimes like scary films are really fun, and sometimes they can be a bit of a like life scary enough. You don't want, you know what I mean? This might be one you haven't seen before, and yeah, have some 60s vintage fun watching it. Again, just to mention I watched the actual film, but the Mystery Science Theater kind of coverage of it, whatever you would call it, like that episode, season 5, episode 14, I'm pretty sure. That's a really good way to watch it if you want to do something fun for Halloween. Watch some episodes of that, and I recommend this one. And also, quite a lot of this director's films were covered by Mystery Science Theater 3000. Yeah, so that is Tormented, and I'm not going to tell you what year it was from because I'm pretty sure I said it about 25 times during the course of this. Yeah, happy Halloween, guys, and I hope you've enjoyed Halloween month. And yeah, I've got some really fun old school vintage films coming up for you guys, so happy Halloween.